San Pedro candidate forum for the 2021 elections. We're glad that you were able to join us this evening. I'm Diana Nave, and I'm the chair of the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council Bylaws and Elections Committee. And conducting this forum with me tonight is Brian D'Angelo, who's a current member of the board of Northwest San Pedro and also a member of the Bylaws and Elections Committee. And then Jason Herring will be providing technical assistance tonight. Jason is a member of our Planning and Land Use Committee also. The three of us are not candidates in this election. So we will be recording this forum and we plan to post it on our website, nwsanpedro.org. So first of all, I want to thank Jason just for helping us out tonight. As you probably know by now, this year's neighborhood council election is different from any prior year's election due to the pandemic. And I have to click continue. Neighborhood councils are official bodies under the City of Los Angeles, and our election is being conducted by the city clerk's office in accordance with rules that have been established by the City Council and the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. Due to the pandemic, the city has decided that all voting will be by absentee ballot. There will be no in-person voting this year. This means that in order to vote, it will be necessary for you to register and submit an application for a ballot. In the past, we actually did this after you arrived at the polls. So there are three ways this year that you can register. You can complete a registration online. You can download the application form and then submit it by mail to the city clerk's office, or you can pick up a paper copy, complete it, and mail it to the city clerk's office. Online applications and applications for downloading can be found at the website shown on the screen. But it's probably easier to go to our website and access it there. So Jason is showing our website, and you go to where it says the elections and you click for details. Whoops. And when you click for details, down there under voting information, if you see that first red link, I'll show that link, that first red link, that is the one that you use if you're going to be applying online. When you get there, you have to go to how to vote. And then you go to the very first highlighted area, and that's the vote by mail application portal. Check on the first one there. Yeah. And then what you have to do is you have to create a voter login. So as candidates, the candidates already did a login, but this is a new login. So if you haven't done it, you still have to create a new login. And then after you log in, there are more details that you have to complete that we actually can't show you now. So it's kind of a complex, it's almost like the city could have made it harder to do, a complex process. The easier process is probably to download an application online. So if you go back, before you go back, just show the one thing, no, right there, the second one down. This is the second one down. Whoops. This is just where you would go to get instructions on how, there's an instructional video on doing the online. But if you go back one more now, back to our, and then back one more. Okay, so here, another way, if you want the mail-in application, you can click right here on the mail-in application and you can just download it. And then you can complete it and send it in. That's probably the easiest way to request a ballot. And that would look similar to what you have done before. And then if you back up to the page, back up one page, Jason. Yeah, if you scroll down on this page, I just want to show people one other thing. See where it says vote by mail facts, vote by mail FAQs. This is a place where you can go if you have difficulties and problems. It has information on what to do if you encounter problems. So if the third way of doing an application is to pick up a hard copy application. And hard copy applications are available in 4 locations. The opening and closing hours vary by location. So we can go back to the slides now. I'm back one. So there are 4 locations where you can pick up a ballot application. The first one is at the Peck Park Community Center. Now, they have applications, but they are currently closed due to the pandemic. So there's a notice posted on the door with a phone number to call. And as long as the staff are in the office, they'll bring you out an application. The second one is the Assistance League on 8th Street, and you go in their gift shop and they have them in there. One thing about the Assistance League is it does close at 3 o'clock. So you can't go there after 3 and get one. The third one is the mail room at 1840 South Gaffey. And the last one is the San Pedro Public Library. The library is also currently closed, but they have a table out in front during their operating hours. They have a table out in front. And if you go to that table, someone will come out. And if you ask that person, they will go inside and they will get you an application. So those are the ways you can get an application. No matter which method you select, all applications must be received by the city no later than 5:00 p.m. on Monday, June 8th. After receiving and validating your application, the city will mail a ballot to you along with a postage paid return envelope. They are scheduled to start mailing ballots out next Monday, May 17th. Okay, next slide. So you are eligible to vote if you are at least 16 years of age by June 15th and live, work, or own property in Northwest San Pedro. Or you can be what's considered a community interest voter, and that is someone who participates in a community organization that is located in Northwest and has continuously maintained a physical street address for at least 1 year, and that performs ongoing and verifiable activities that benefit the neighborhood. And examples of these organizations are schools, churches, synagogues, and nonprofit organizations. This second category of voters, the community interest voters, are only eligible to vote for at-large seats. So if you're filling out the application form online, you will be asked which type of ballot you want. There's a kind of general ballot, and then there's a community interest ballot. Next slide. This election, we're going to be filling 15 of the 17 seats on the board. There was 1 seat for which there were no certified applicants. That's the Vista del Oro area. And we will soon be accepting applications for that seat. If you think you might be interested in applying for that, then you might want to enter your contact information into the Q&A. The 17th seat is the youth seat, and both seats will be filled by a vote of the new board members. The board has 2-year and 4-year terms. You'll be able to vote for the same number of people as there are seats in each category. For example, you'll be able to vote for up to 2 people in the Taper area. In general, the highest vote getter will receive a 4-year term, while the second highest vote getter will receive a 2-year term. The exception is the at-large seat, where the top 3 vote getters will be elected. Tie votes will be decided by the remaining board members once the new board is installed. Jason, can you check the Q&A? Tonight, you will be meeting 20, well, not 20 candidates. I think we have 17 or 18 candidates here tonight. A couple of them were unable to join us. Braun will be asking each candidate to answer the same 3 predetermined questions. All candidates will be given the same questions and the same length of time to respond. After all candidates have had the opportunity to answer the first question, then we'll move on to the second question. None of the candidates know the questions ahead of time. So we're going to use a revolving alphabetical approach to provide as much fairness as possible. That is, we're going to rotate the order in which each person answers the question. Jason will be displaying a countdown clock to assist in keeping each candidate within the time allotted for their answer. We will finish by giving each candidate 50 seconds to provide a closing comments and to provide any additional information they think is important. Doing this in the time of a pandemic and doing it with 20 candidates is challenging, and we're not going to be able to take any questions from the public tonight. So with that, I will turn it over to Ron.
Hey, everybody. So as Diana had indicated, this is a rotating questions. We are starting with the non-governmental organization group that has 2 candidates. And the first individual who will be answering a question will be John Barbera. And that question is, John, what is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council? And how, or have you, or do you plan to address it?
I would say right now, homeless is one of our biggest things, and I'm trying to work with everybody with the CD15 and other organizations that are at the homeless, and try to accommodate the people that are living in the streets and all that, to get them in shelters, get them, you know, better looking and all that, and also get them educated. That is probably one of the biggest things we need to handle right now in San Pedro.
You're muted.
Our next candidate for the, well, Jason, are you able to, there we go. Our next candidate for the non-governmental organization group seat is Christian Guzman. Christian's not here tonight, correct, Diana?
That's correct. He's at Central Neighborhood Council taking minutes for them.
Okay. And I believe that our next category would be school with candidate Kelly Miller, but I believe she's not here with us today either. Is that correct?
I haven't seen her. Kelly, if you're here, speak up.
All right, so we're going to move on to the taper area where there are 2 candidates running. First candidate, Victor Christensen. Question is, what is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council? And how have you, or do you plan to address it?
I would have to echo John Barbera a little bit with the homeless, because that is the single biggest issue. But I think the issue that I would have the most expertise in addressing is the education aspect of the local community, and making sure that there are places that can provide the education to the kids. We have a lot of what I'll call regular schools around. We don't have a lot of more nature-based schools or education facilities in the area. And that would be the thing that I would most like to address while on the board, and even before being on the board.
And that is time. All right, our next candidate for the taper area, Melanie Lebrecq. Melanie, what is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council, and how have you, or do you plan to address it?
My main issue is public safety. I've addressed this the 5 years that I've been on the board by creating and being the founder of the Neighborhood Watch for this area, of a 600-member watch, and also partnering with LAPD and building a relationship with them to get the responses that we need in the neighborhood and the Northwest area to continue building those relationships for public safety.
All right. All right, moving on to the at-large seats. First candidate, Cynthia Gagne. What is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council, and how have you, or do you plan to address it? Cynthia?
You need to unmute yourself.
Unmute. I'm sorry.
All right.
I've been on the public safety committees for almost 11 years now, and I'm most concerned with disaster preparedness. As some people know, we just had a 3.7 earthquake about 3 days ago. And although it was 12 miles deep, I even felt it at my house. Most of us aren't even prepared what to do or where to go or have water on hand. So I like going around and telling people what to do and how to be prepared for that disaster to mitigate it. And also I'm a ham operator, a ham radio operator, and I'm a volunteer for the sheriff's office. So if there is a disaster, they call us up and we go over to the sheriff's department and we handle the radio for the police and the fire if there's a disaster.
All right. Our next candidate, Gwen Henry. What is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council, and how have you or do you plan to address it?
Well, I've been on the board since 2016 and have been chair of the Sustainability Committee since 2017. And in that time, there's been a big transition over at the port. The Clean Air Action Plan has been something that has pretty much transitioned a lot of industry at the port. We are at the conflux of oil, fuel supply points, storage facilities, and residential communities. So it's very important for all of our stakeholders to have a voice when we talk about cleaning our air, our water, and our soil. So I hope to continue to lead in that. Thank you.
All right. Candidates for the at-large seats. Laurie Jacobs. What is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council, and how have you or do you plan to address it?
Thank you, Bron. No surprise here, homelessness. I'm dedicated to advocating for our unhoused neighbors, to lobby for affordable housing, better paying jobs, mental health resources, and other solutions to address the homelessness crisis. As the homelessness liaison for our board, I attend many meetings such as the CD15 Working Group on Homelessness to learn and relay information on the current city, county, state, and federal programs addressing these issues. Educating our community is necessary to begin to effectively promote change. My daytime job that I actually get paid for also is dealing with seeking out innovative homelessness solutions. We must put this as a top priority. That's it. I beat the clock. Thank you.
All right, our next candidates, Angela Sumner. What is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council, and how have you or do you plan to address it?
Well, as a parent raising 2 daughters in San Pedro, I'm looking at us coming out of this pandemic and the huge effect that it's had on the children in our community, well, and in the whole world. I see so many opportunities in San Pedro, whether it's Girl Scouts or the Boys and Girls Club. And I feel like raising awareness of these opportunities and bringing them to all the children in our community might help transition as they recover from the pandemic and resume life and activities, and can help kind of close the gap, because I believe the pandemic has had a different effect on children depending on their circumstances prior to that. So I would really love to see what we can do in that area. That's it.
And I believe our final candidate for the at-large seat, Rachel Water, is not with us tonight. Rachel, if you are here, please speak up now.
She had a family emergency.
Okay, understood. Just want to make sure. All right, our next section is the Avril area. And our first candidate is Armando Balderrama. Armando, what is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council, and how have you or do you plan to address it?
Thank you and good evening. Hope everybody's doing well. I would like to address the homeless issue with a whole different point of view than other people have been dealing with it in the past. We need a more aggressive actions to be taken. We need to be more assertive in our actions. We need to hold people accountable. A lot of the outreach groups that have been out there have been getting millions of dollars. They have done nothing to get jobs done, to find homeless people places to stay and to train them for possibly going back to the workforce. And we need to understand that we need to be more aggressive and assertive and not compliant and listening to people telling us their little stories of how they've done great things. The proof is in the pudding, and right now the pudding's pretty sour. And the city and the state have known it, and even judges that have even stated that we need to get stuff done right. So that's what I'd like to do, hit it in a more aggressive manner.
All right, our next candidates from the Avril area, Adriana Reyes Cruz. Adriana, what is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council, and how have you or do you plan to address it?
So I'm Cruz. Can you guys hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we can see you and hear you.
Okay, so I'm currently the youth representative. Right now, I'm planning to run again now, obviously. I'm in the Youth and Outreach Committee. I'm very active there. I attend mostly every time when there's a meeting. So I believe that youth should be aware of the resources and have a plan after high school. Coming from a low-income family, I thought that it was very difficult to know what plans there is after high school. So I was actually involved in the Pathways to Employment, and I believe it was a success, and they were able to learn some skills after high school. I think that is very essential and active. So.
All right, our next candidate from the Avril area, Neil Courtcamp. Neil, what is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council, and how have you or do you plan to address it?
Thank you, Bron. So the most important issue for us to be tackling is housing affordability and homelessness. And how I would tackle this is through expansions and direct investment into free public housing. Housing these people is already less expensive than many of the solutions we're pursuing right now. It gets them off the street and gives them the stability they need to begin rebuilding your life. You cannot rebuild your life while you are, constantly out on the street. In Finland, through this method, they have pushed back against things like gentrification and have completely ended homelessness in their nation. We need to tackle the rising wave of gentrification and unaffordability in Pedro. And this rising wave is just doing its best to render our city unaffordable. I don't know what to tell you.
All right, our final candidate for the Avril area, Chris Valle. What is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council, and how have you or do you plan to address it?
Well, I find that there's my approach towards government, what it is that I explain to people the role of government is essentially a structure that provides care for the more vulnerable for those who are stronger. And I can't really give you a single issue that's most important when you look at sustainability in terms of the environment, when you look at access to education and healthcare, when you look at housing security and things like that. For me, it all circles back to outdated policy and political will. I think my focus of the neighborhood council would be to help foster and participate in conversations that address the root causes of these problems, that we can look at things in a tactical fashion and try and house people and try and look at housing costs and things like that and look at the environment. But there are economic and political root causes that have to be addressed before any of these things can be viable solutions.
All right. Our next category is going to be the business rep. And our next candidate is going to be Rock Ashfield. Rock, what is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council, and how have you or do you plan to address it?
Well, it's the continued development of San Pedro and even more so downtown San Pedro. I help out with that because I got involved with the neighborhood council and the planning and land use committee because I was a voting member of the economic development committee for the San Pedro Chamber of Commerce, the best chamber of commerce in the world. And I do have a past background in development. In fact, when I bought here in San Pedro 20 years ago, I was wondering how we were not optimizing this waterfront. And thankfully, it's happening today with over 3,000 new housing starts, some of which do have affordability factors in them. And I also help by having developers promote their projects to our largest real estate agency in town so that they can continue selling San Pedro in our little corner of the world. And that way, I think that those boats rise everything.
All right, our next candidate, Diana, would have been Maya. I believe Maya's not with us tonight, is that correct?
I've not seen Maya. Maya, if you're here, do raise your hand so we know you're here, but I've not seen her, so I think she's not with us.
All right, so moving on, our next candidate for business rep, John Demeglio. John, what is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council? And how have you or do you plan to address it?
My issue is to make sure the public is informed, make sure everybody in the neighborhood knows what's going on in the community at all times. And hopefully nobody profits off of this board for their own personal gain. Thank you.
Right. Our next category is the Park Western area. Our next candidate is Dan Dixon. Dan, what is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council, and how have you or do you plan to address it?
I'm very impressed by the specificity of the answers you've been getting and the huge global implications of most of them, from the unhoused to housing affordability. I guess it's a curse and a blessing to call myself a generalist. For 16 years on the board, I've tried to be interested in and work on an assortment of issues. Hence, I guess why I'm on the issues committee. We get to look at everything from use of port funds in our neighborhood to potholes and stop signs. We are blessed to be able to look at the whole array of issues facing our good little town here and try to make them better.
All right. Our next candidate for the Park Western area is Craig Goldfarb. Craig, what is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council, and how have you or do you plan to address it?
Okay, so neighborhood council is supposed to be about working with the community to represent these issues to the cities. It's not supposed to be about creating an adversarial board where board executives are constantly interrupting and disturbing others to offset the discussion when it doesn't meet their personal objectives. Board members need to be treated as adults. The president and vice president are not running a meeting, but a tag team to restrict discussion. They constantly repeat the same objectives of the committee, to turn in reports in a timely manner. This has been repeated every morning meeting for the 8 years. When do you get the message that it isn't working? The same applies to getting out the meeting in a timely manner. It's always an issue in the meeting. The meeting's always overrun. Poor planning and ineffective management by the president and constant interrupting by the vice president make these meetings all about them instead about the issues of the community.
Ron, you're muted.
Ron?
Unmute.
Sorry, I had muted myself because I had to cough. My apologies. Our final candidate for the Park Western area, Ray Regalado. Ray, what is the issue you most want to address as a member of the neighborhood council, and how have you or do you plan to address it?
Unmute, Ray.
Thank you. Great question. The focus that I think is really important is the ability to work effectively with our city partners, our city government partners, our elected officials, and so on. It seems to be at times our relationship with them is sometimes at arm's length. So the focus I would like to work on would be development of trust with our city partnerships, and also develop the long-lasting partnerships with them, and one goes hand in hand with the other. My background is something that allows me to do that, and I believe that I can do that very effectively.
All right, we've reached the bottom of the order. Before we move on to our next question, I do see there were some questions from the the audience, and I will try and address them right now. Regarding the view of the slides, there are no slides currently on the screen. We have the timer and the candidates who are speaking. If you're in webinar mode, which I believe all of the attendees are, you will be seeing the individual who is talking at the time. Again, there are no slides right now. There's simply a countdown timer for the candidates. All right, moving on to the next question. Question 2, starting with the Taper area and Melanie Lebrecht. Melanie, how can the council more effectively engage the community?
I think basically, I think what we can do is by each of us that represent our areas, try and reach out to people a little bit more with more information that comes from the meetings, to try and encourage people to get on our email list, because that's where the information comes from a lot. Is if you're on our email, then you get a lot of the information and direct them to website. Also, one of the things that we can start doing more is targeting some of the clubs that meet, like the senior citizens clubs and stuff at Peck Park, to try and start going to those meetings to give outreach material and to invite them to our meetings or ask them what their concerns are. I think would help.
Ron, unmute.
I'm trying to make it so I don't accidentally interrupt anybody. Our next candidate is Victor Christensen. Victor, how can the council more effectively engage the community?
Well, it's a combination of the email, like Melanie mentioned, plus, physically going to different locations, social media, and various other electronic means for those who don't have electronic means or can't easily get to them. More possibly door to door, not so much in the pandemic, but by mail or something like that, to get things, the information needed to the stakeholders so they know what's going on in the community and how they can join in.
All right. Our next candidate from the non-governmental organization, John Barbera. John, how can the council more effectively engage the community?
One of the ways that we've been doing it is, of course, having all these different, different things. Like at the park, we have, movie by the park. We have, music by the sea, and we get involved with things like this wherever there's a function going on where a lot of people go to it and everything. We should be there representing our city and get people to sign up and let them know what we can do and get them, educate them while they're there, because that's one of the ways we're going to get, I think, people and stakeholders to come to us. We need to educate them to what we do and how we can do it and get them involved. That's just not us. We need to involve our stakeholders more, and that they're part of this city. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the Avril area. And our next candidate, Adriana Reyes Cruz. Adriana, how can the council more effectively engage the community?
Yeah, so I think it would be attending the meetings, whatever they're interested in or whatever they're looking for their answers. And another way would be the emails too, and also receiving the news, like just in case they don't have access of the internet, they're able to be receiving the newsletter by mail. Like I did, it's able to tell us the information. For example, this virtual forum, it was mentioned in the newsletter, so I think that's something that can be effective. And yeah.
All right. Our next candidate for Avril area, Neil Courtcamp. Neil, how can the council more effectively engage the community?
So we can better outreach to our community through direct outreach. My constituency of Averill is small enough that I can, in fact, and will be reaching out to them on foot as soon as Corona begins to abate, whether through flyers, emails, and through events. However, the best form of outreach for constituents is by actually delivering on their needs. They have no reason to give a damn about us if we are a fangless and unhelpful institution. Meet people's needs and they will come to you.
All right, our next candidate from Averill, Chris Valle. Chris, how can the council more effectively engage the community?
Well, I think the council has a pretty substantial history of quality outreach in the community, with our in-person events, which we would hopefully be able to resume as soon as it's safe. But we have, I think, an opportunity to expand our social media presence, which is a really cost and time effective way to get our messaging out, and a good way to collect feedback. I think that one of our improved methods of outreach has been sort of forced on us with the coronavirus, and that these online virtual meetings have been a way for people to attend more meetings more often than they might have in person otherwise. So I think by partnering with, for instance, with Earth Day and Eco Fest with county parks, and with city parks with our presence at Peck Park and our movie nights, we have opportunities to partner in events, put events on, and basically keep our finger on the pulse of the community.
All right, our final candidate from Averill area, Armando Balderrama. Armando, how can the council more effectively engage the community?
Unmute, Armando.
I'd like to know, how much time do we have when we do these things?
50 seconds.
Okay, thank you.
There's a timer in front of Jason's.
Okay, thank you very much. And what was the question again, please?
Jason, why don't we restart the timer? The question is, how can the council more effectively engage the community?
Oh, that's quite simple. We got to get out there and meet them. Meet them at the parks where they're playing baseball and softball and soccer. Meet them have an ice cream social where we can get together and talk over issues that the community feel are very important. We need to get the pulse of what the community is asking. We need to aggressively and sincerely meet them where they're at the churches, at the market, at the ballparks. That's what we need to do. And we need to be friendly and approachable. And we need to show them that we do care and we're working for them. We are advocates for the community that we serve. And that's what I would do. I'd have ice cream socials and gatherings, and go to the YMCA when they have special clubs, and go to the girls and boys clubs, things of that nature. Reach out to them. That's what I would do.
All right, our next category, business rep, John Demeglio. How can the council more effectively engage the community?
Okay, I ditto Neil and ditto Armando. Stop wasting money on a bunch of stuff and start every meeting, have a flyer out, have a postcard out to remind people that there's a meeting, and get people engaged. It's the only way you're going to do it. The advocate doesn't do it. We need it once a month, and wasting money on the advocate is not helping. We need to actually get in the mail a postcard of some kind, reminding people that there's a meeting, and get them involved. Thank you.
All right, our next candidate from the business rep seat, Rock Ashfield. Rock, how can the council more effectively engage the community?
Talk to people. I talk to people all day. I talk to people in the gym. I talk to them in the office. I talk to other offices. I talk to other businesses. I talk to people at Smart and Final. I am always spreading the word about what's happening in our little corner here. And that's how they sort of know, because they don't quite know out of meetings and other small events and things like that, which is good, which is part of the source. But it's constantly, I've been promoting San Pedro even before I was involved in other things here, because it just reminds me of another place I used to live, which then burst into great economic greatness. And I see the same thing here with San Pedro, except it's beside the water. So I'm talking about it every day, whether it's a neighborhood council, chamber member, or just guy on the street. Just keep talking.
All right. Moving on to the Park Western area. Our next candidate, Craig Goldfarb. Craig, how can the council more effectively engage the community? Craig, you're muted.
You're still muted, sir.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay. It is way past time that we as a community should expect a board that treats the community and fellow board members as adults. These are not hard things to achieve, but you have to choose people that do that. That this board does not treat people as an adult and engages them as adults is why they're not showing up and participating. It is shown, you can see it whenever you attend the meeting. Whenever somebody asks questions, they get cut off. It's really sad that we have to be resorting to this and to these meetings and then find out that these people have no clue what's going on in their community. They make it up.
All right. Our next rep from the Park Western area, Ray Regalado. Ray, how can the council more effectively engage in the community?
As a council, I think it's important that we work as a group with common goals and going out to in that respect and engage community. As an individual, I think it's important that we do this, talking to our neighbors, talking to our people who are close to us. The bottom line is communication and the ability to be able to go out there and actually talk to people at their level and probably do something that sometimes we're not used to doing, and that is to sit and listen to what they're saying. It's important to understand what they're saying and sometimes just repeat it right back to them so that the person knows that they were listened to.
All right, our final candidate from Park Western area, Dan Dixon. Dan, how can the council more effectively engage the community?
I personally feel the advocate is a good use of money. More people that I know comment on issues after the advocate comes out than any other source that I can think of other than speaking to them directly. Speaking to people directly is key to our ability to assist them in understanding how things work. I learned the hard way a couple of years ago that you can't phone it in. You need to engage everybody's point of view on important issues, on issues that are important to the community, even if they're not global issues. I want to say that my colleagues on the various committees, I think, are doing an excellent job with the events that they work on and sponsor and nurture to bring information to the community. There.
All right. Now for our at-large candidates, Gwen Henry, how can the council more effectively engage the community?
This is actually a topic that I'm really passionate about. I'm going to ask every single person who's a candidate right now to promise to interact with the outreach committee, to support each and every one of these committees when they do an outreach event. You do not miss these events. You participate, because most of these are outreach events where you are talking with the community. They care. And as many have already said, go out, be on the street, and talk to your neighbors, talk to everyone. It's highly important. And the most important thing is, attendees, you are part of this. We want you to help. We need your voice. You have things to bring to us. You can be a committee member. Please just spread the word. Thank you.
All right, our next at-large candidate, Laurie Jacobs. Laurie, how can the council more effectively engage the community?
Educate and meet in person. Keeping our community informed of local news, events, opportunities, services, and other pertinent activities is extremely important. I'm very proud of the weekly e-newsletter developed under my watch as outreach chair that includes valuable information to keep our community in the know. We provide important resources in the newsletter, also on social media, hard copy newsletters, and in our newly designed website. When COVID hit, we quickly sent out a hard copy newsletter that provided critical resource information and phone numbers for those community members who are not online or not computer savvy. Always meeting the stakeholders at events such as Candy Cane Lane, movies in the park. We have many board members who I've never seen in an outreach activity. Okay, like everybody said, we need to talk with the community. Also surveys to learn more about stakeholder issues and concerns. Thank you.
All right, our next at-large candidate, Angela Sumner. Angela, how can the council more effectively engage the community?
Well, I'll start by telling you my first reaction when you read the question, and it was that you actually are doing a lot of really great things to reach the community. The Facebook page, the advocate, the email newsletters, and the presence at a lot of local events in town pre-pandemic are all things that help raise my awareness. I'll pick two things that I've done just in the past couple months that I think would be a great opportunity to reach out to people. The first is a trash pickup that we had in our neighborhood, because you have people from your very local community coming out, and these are the people who are involved. These are the people who care, and we can get the word out about what we're doing and bring them more involved. And the second is a neighborhood watch meeting. Again, another opportunity to reach out to the people who are most likely to get more involved if we raise awareness of what the board is doing. So just to have more events like that, more trash pickups, neighborhood watch meetings, and reach out that way. Sorry.
All right, our final candidates, Cynthia Gagne. Cynthia, how can the council more effectively engage the community? Cynthia, you're muted.
When I was first elected to the San Pedro Northwest Neighborhood Council, I was so excited that I was going around telling everybody about the board and what we did. And I would ask them what their concerns were every time I went shopping or was walking my dog. Now, after 12 years, everybody comes to me and they tell me what their issues are and what their concerns are. And that helps me to relate to them, because after all, I like to represent the people of San Pedro. And that's my main purpose of being on the board. Thank you.
All right, for our final question of the night, going back to the taper area, and our candidate, Victor Christensen. Victor, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
Well, I was born, or not born, but I was raised to basically be a critical thinker. So I'm also my background is kind of computer engineer, more, I guess, on the non-emotional side in a way. So it's easy for me to separate my views from other people's views, even if they differ, and sort out the best option to go with, even if it may not be my personal preference.
Our next candidate, Melanie Lebrecht. Melanie, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
In general, I'm a pretty open-minded person, and I like to learn new things, new ways of doing things, as well as just being open-minded. I have people that are more experienced, like with homelessness. I listen to them and I learn from them and try and learn things that I'm not knowledgeable about from them. That leads me to being more open about different ways of thinking and views, that I can see other people's views and not just straight my own all the time. And that's important when being an elected official. You need to be able to step in different shoes of life and view things differently as other people may view it.
All right, moving on to our next group, the non-governmental organization. And our candidate, John Barbera. John, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
Well, you know, there's an old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can. And when in this business, we need to listen to everybody. Everything matters in this world, whether it's from a 1-year-old to a 99-year-old. Everybody has a say and they all have ideas. And just because, you know, we're stuck on our own, we need to listen to people. We need to get with them, hear what they've got to say, because they're the ones that, you know, you'll learn more from different people. And, you know, and our children that are now maybe 9, 10 years old, their future, this is their future. Ours is kind of, you know, going to be over, you know, but we need to work with them and listen to what they have to say. And that's how we're going to make this community a lot better.
All right, moving on to our next candidate with the business rep, John Demeglio. John, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
I listen to the people around me, the constituents around me, and I do. I take pride in representing them, and hopefully not, and all of San Pedro, also not just our area, just all of San Pedro, and hopefully not do anything and vote anything that would harm the people of San Pedro and the people that I represent. Thank you.
All right, our next candidate, Rock Ashfield. Rock, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
Well, in my past life as a project developer for major projects, my job was to develop consensus with stakeholders. And we would do outreach like we're talking about with various different groups about how this project impacted them and why. And we wanted to listen. I would also have to get several municipal entities to approve of projects. So that could be very diverse opinions. So our main job was to listen, see if we could find common ground. It has nothing to do with what I think. It's how we can advance the project and if the project actually makes sense. So it's listening and developing consensus.
All right, our next candidate from the Park Western area, Ray Regalado. Ray, how would you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
3 words. You need to be able to approach, you need to be able to ask questions, and then you need to be able to listen. And to engage all 3 of those pieces will allow you to understand what it is someone else is saying. It's important that the approach out there shows that you're interested. It's important to the people in my community, in the community that we serve, that we have the opportunity to be seen and for the individual to feel that they are being heard. And that's why it's important for them to see you, feel you, and also make sure that you're talking to each other. But listening and reflecting is really important.
All right, our next candidate from Park Western, Dan Dixon. Dan, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
Our late comment.
Nope. Dan, you muted yourself.
Sorry, I pushed it twice. Our late colleague and friend Pete Burmeister put my feet to the fire constantly about issues large and small. Sometimes he infuriated me. I did, however, try to listen to what was behind what he was talking about. And surprisingly, perhaps, we reached a consensus between ourselves on a number of issues that I would not have thought it possible. I think the key, as people have indicated, is to listen to more than talk, not assume that you know everything or anything for that matter, and be willing to learn, to absorb, and to understand where the other person is coming from and see how that can dovetail with your own beliefs to form a solution beneficial to the community.
All right, our final candidate from Park Western area, Craig Goldfarb. Craig, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them? And you're muted again. Craig? Craig, you're muted again. Just as an aside to all
Okay, I've
candidates.
unmuted it. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Thank you. Okay. As you can tell by the way this forum was composed, without allowing the community to ask questions, shows the utter lack of community concerns, of the concerns of the community. This is what we need to change. Notice there are more panelists than there are community members. One has to listen and engage with your stakeholders with respect. You need to stop trying to educate the stakeholders. We need them to educate us. We need to get out and walk our neighborhoods and see the needs. We need to participate in our neighborhoods, not try to make the neighborhoods and our stakeholders participate with us. We are not engaging, and that is what our failure is.
All right, our next candidates are at-large candidates. Laurie Jacobs. Laurie, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
Thank you for the question, Braun. I want to carry on representing the people of this community and do my best to make sure their concerns are heard and addressed, as I believe everyone should be represented and heard fairly and equitably. I was taught at an early age to look at all aspects of issues and to respect all people. I believe in the democratic process, which is to support the will of the people as they vote. You need to engage, listen, learn, educate, analyze, and act. And when I say educate, we need to make sure our constituents have all the facts so that they can give us their opinions from an informed point of view. Then we need to go with whatever the majority of people want. That is the democratic process. Thank you.
Our next at-large candidate, Angela Sumner. Angela, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
Well, my field is counseling psychology, and it's sort of paramount to the profession that you can listen and empathize with the people that you're talking with. And by empathy, it's putting yourself in their shoes and understanding their perspective. Over the last few elections, I've engaged in countless hours of volunteer work, and the vast majority of that was get out the vote, bipartisan campaigns, believing that everybody deserves their voice to be heard. And whether or not I agree with that voice is not relevant, they deserve to be represented by their government. And I plan to do that if elected.
Our next candidate, Cynthia Gagne. Cynthia, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
I would do that by talking to the people from San Pedro and listening to their concerns, as I had said earlier. I also like listening to the board members when we have our committee and board meetings, and I get a lot of different perspective when they speak. I think it takes constant discipline and a concern for the community. It's good. Thank you.
Our final at-large candidate, Gwen Henry. Gwen, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
Well, I appreciate this board because we have a very diverse set of opinions. It's really fantastic. And being civil to each other is very important. In regards to the environmental committee, we have an extraordinarily challenging thing in that our stakeholders are businesses that some other stakeholders have health concerns about. And so we do have a lot of people that and others who derive their careers from it. So we do have a lot of people to listen to in order to very carefully craft what we want to say. So in fact, at CIS that we did, it was crafted right there in committee. So once again, please join the committees, be part of the process.
All right, moving on to the Averill area. Our next candidate, Neil Courtcamp. Neil, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
Sure. So when any issue is broached, the first question you need to ask mentally is, how does this affect the people I was chosen to represent? Then you ask, how does this affect the communities and the wider social network that my community is attached to, right? When I think of how I represent and how I would represent people, I'm a representative first and foremost. And my opinion in most matters is ultimately meaningless. Democracy only works and is only democratic when it comes from the ground up. Really, when it comes to this sort of thing, you lead by obeying. If like you lead by obeying, that's how you do it.
All right, our next candidate from the Averill area, Chris Valle. Chris, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
In short, I wouldn't. I would use my own personal beliefs and my point of view to help me decide how this person's point of view, when I'm talking to somebody, when I'm listening to a member of the community, when I'm gathering information, I try and find a way for me to carry their message forward, and it has to be personal for me. So my own personal point of view and philosophy about government and community is that we all have to get there together. Even when I think someone's absolutely wrong, they still have to be part of the solution. So that regardless of whether I'm diametrically opposed to them or in complete agreement, their point of view is valuable to me because that person has to be part of our equation. And bringing their message to the table and making sure that they are able to participate and feel validated is and it's more important than mine, because there will be always people who disagree with you, but they're part of your reality as well.
Our next candidate from the Averill area, Armando Balderrama. Armando, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
Well, I have a great deal of experience with this due to the fact that I served our country for over 20 years in the armed forces, and I had to listen to a lot of people that knew a lot more than I did, and a lot of people that didn't know as much as I did, and balance out the two and use it to the best of my ability to work with the people that I was chosen to work with and to lead. And during my tours of duty, one thing I've learned is that it's a wise person that feels that there's something to learn every day, and it's a fool who feels that they know it all. So it's always good to go with an open mind when you're talking to individuals, and there's a lot of important things that they have to say, and you just listen and you work it from there. It's really a simple concept. You just have to respect them the way that you want to be respected in return. Thank you.
Our final candidate from the Averill area, Adriana Reyes Cruz. Adriana, how will you separate your own personal beliefs from those of your constituents to best represent them?
I believe is something important is hearing their ideas or their opinions, making them be accepted and making them feel that they're involved and not judge their whatever they're saying, their opinions or ideas. And also I believe it's not just thinking that it's just us making the ideas, or only thinking that, oh, it's just me. And I think that's what I have.
All right. Well, that is the bulk of the question form. I want to thank everyone for respecting the timer and respecting each other. Now we're going to be having closing statements from each of our candidates. And you'll each have 50 seconds to basically give whatever final statement you'd like. We're going to have the same sort of round robin approach, starting with the seats which are not in contention, i.e. there are just as many candidates as there are seats or less, and then we'll move on to the seats that are in contention. So the first group for the closing statement, the non-governmental organization, And we have John Barbera.
I've been on the board for the last couple of years. I've been here in San Pedro for quite a few years, and I love this little city. It has everything, people of all cultures that get together. I was very appreciative when I got onto the board, been doing it, like I said, for 2 years. I'm also on committees. I have 4 committees that I dedicate myself to. And I love going to the meetings. I love listening to people, and I like getting involved. And that's one of the main things too. I also work for the Assistance League of San Pedro and South Bay. And I do a lot. Been elected over there as building maintenance. And it's just working with everybody, the homeless people and low-income families. Thank you.
All right, from the Taper area, Melanie Lebrecht.
Hi. So I'm running for a second term and for the San Pedro Neighborhood Council. I want to continue to contribute to the Taper area and be a representative of that area. I've served on the neighborhood council, as I said, for 5 years. I've been the treasurer for all 5 years in the public safety chair. I want to continue to serve ethically and transparently the neighborhood and focus on public safety as well as the financial matters and business management that I bring to the ability that I bring to the table. I'm looking forward to us being able to outreach more and the San Pedro community recovering from COVID and seeing great things in San Pedro prosper economically.
Our next candidate, Victor Christensen.
I'm also a longtime San Pedro born and raised. We're original owners of the house I'm in. I grew up at the Science Center, and that's one of the big things that I'm supporting and have supported through the years. And I've been doing it from outside the board and being a fellow stakeholder for all my life of this area. I wanted to start supporting the stakeholders from a different place by being on the board. And that should do it. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the Park Western area, Dan Dixon. Caught Dan by surprise.
Unmute, Dan.
There we go. You're unmuted, Dan.
There. Stubborn icon. Thank you. Thank you. I hope that we all treasure this little jewel by the sea, a former sleepy fishing village, and later an outer suburb of a huge metropolis, which happens to coexist and depend on one of the great economic engines of the industrialized world. There are natural tensions and resentments and fears from both sides about how that relationship will continue. But I just feel it's so important that we all maintain our sense of family, of kinship, and of belief in the forward momentum of this town we call Pedro, and where my grandchildren, I hope, will live their lives out. Thank you.
All right, from the Park Western area, Craig Goldfarb.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's well past time to give the council back to the community. We need to embrace the issues that concern them, not the issues that concern individual members of the board. I am proactive individual and I'm result oriented. It is difficult to see the way the current leadership of the board ignoring the concerns of the community and board members they want to ignore. Now is the time when upcoming city elections that we work together to improve our community and to find out what the community needs most, not to dictate it. I'm done.
All right, next candidate from Park Western, Ray Regalado.
I've spent my career with the county working in impacted communities where people feel that they are not heard. When I moved to San Pedro 20 years ago, or actually more than 20 years ago, I was very surprised and very happy to see that there was a mechanism for people to participate and be heard. The neighborhood council, no matter with all its challenges, is the best way people have to engage the people who lead them and to engage the people who serve them. The neighborhood council is something that I am a proud member of, and I hope to continue to be part of the system for as long as you're willing to let me.
Our next group are at-large candidates. Angela Sumner.
I moved to San Pedro about 14 years ago when my oldest daughter was 1.5 years old, and I'm just so thrilled to be raising my girls here. I was trying to count, I think at least half a dozen different groups we've participated in with the San Pedro Holiday Parade. I just love that this community has so many opportunities to just intersect with everybody that you've met through different groups. I'm looking to be a new addition to the board. I would love the opportunity to represent our stakeholders and to represent our needs to the city council. I think this is just an amazing opportunity, and I'm really hopeful to be a part of it. Thank you so much.
All right, our next candidate, Cynthia Gagne. You're muted, Cynthia.
Yep, I'm unmuted. I've enjoyed being on the board for the past 12 years. I'm on the Public Safety Committee. I was on the Budget Committee and the Port Committee and the Executive Committee. I'm also a member of the San Pedro Homeowners United. We really have a great community here in San Pedro, and it's really cozy compared to downtown LA, but we also have one of the busiest and largest ports. And I really enjoy being here. I enjoy representing the people, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, our next at-large candidate, Gwen Henry.
I've had the incredible privilege of being part of the neighborhood council. This is such an extraordinary opportunity for a community to be heard. And the Northwest San Pedro, I moved here in 2015. I've got to honestly say that between the small town, hometown feeling, as well as being on the edge of one of the biggest industries in the world, and the history here is just, it continues to unfold. I'm a native Californian. I love history, and I hope that to continue to support every stakeholder and listen to all of you and be of service. It's been quite the privilege.
All right, our next candidate, our at-large candidate, Laurie Jacobs.
Thank you, Braun. In closing, I ask for votes to continue to serve our community. My 9-year performance on this board speaks for itself. Being accountable, transparent, and inclusive is how I conduct business. I have the experience, courage, and passion to create meaningful progress while listening and including everyone's perspective and contribution. I'm solution-oriented in approaching conflicts, issues, and future opportunities for Northwest San Pedro. I believe that building relationships and displaying positive energy are conducive to successful outcomes. I show up, I initiate, I participate, and I appreciate all the great things San Pedro has to offer. Vote for the candidates who walk the talk, are team players, and are solution-oriented. Despite what you're hearing tonight, the vice president and president have been reelected because of the respect and trust that the board has. Thank you very much.
All right, from the Avril area, Chris Valle.
Thank you. This August, I think, will be my 6th year on the board, and my overall experience has been one of great opportunity. I have learned an awful lot. I've had a chance to have a variety of conversations and be a part of decisions that have made me feel more connected to this place that has been my home for just about 8 years now. And I feel I have a responsibility to offer that opportunity to other people to help them achieve their own sense of connectedness and mutual ownership and responsibility for this place, because it's really just the people, the buildings and the landscape and the port and all that stuff. It's just hardware, and the relationships between people are what matters, and our sense of commitment and ownership of our communities is really what our world is. It's the relationships that we're able to build, even when we disagree with one another, are the most important things. It's everything.
Our next candidate, Armando Balderrama.
Yes, I'd like to take this moment to thank my colleagues, all of the people who have spoken already. I learned a lot from them during the past 3 years, 4 years that I've been on the board. And I am going to just put it really in simple form. I work for you. I will be working for you. I will do a job for you. And I am not a failure. I have never failed at things that I put my mind to, because failure is not an option. I will succeed in your comments, that when you have things that you want to be sought out and you want answers for, I'll get you answers. I guarantee I'll get you answers. From hell or high water, I'll get you answers. I am a can-do person, and I'll do it for you, and I'll work for you. Thank you. Bingo.
Our next candidate, Adriana Reyes Cruz.
Hi, I haven't. I have had the. Sorry, I have enjoyed of being the youth representative of the Northwest San Pedro Council. I have lived in San Pedro for 5 years, and I want to be involved in my community and state ideas from a youth representative perspective. I'm sorry. I have a passion of improving and helping my community. I will continue on focusing on the issues of youth, low-income families, and homelessness. I have been active in my community, such as the Boys and Girls Club in San Pedro, Harbor Interfaith Services, and the EXP Future. It will be a privilege to have the opportunity to become a board member in the Averill area, and thank you.
Our last candidate in the Averill area, Neil Courtcamp.
All right, for qualifications, I'm a political scientist, I'm a trans woman, and I'm a blue-collar deckhand with a young perspective and a fire in my gut to ensure that this town stays a working-class town, to raise the standard of living and to modernize San Pedro without the displacement of the people who make this city great. I'm grassroots, I understand what it's like to be poor, and I'm a union and a people-oriented candidate. I'm a 5th-generation Pedro kid, and my heart rests first and foremost in this city. And I only hope to be worthy of representing such a diverse and wonderful sort of people.
All right, our business representatives, Rock Ashfield.
But in San Pedro, 20 years to this month, when it always wasn't a cinch that things would be going up. I've been involved locally frequently for about 8 years. I've been on the board 2 years, the chamber for 3. I'm involved in working with and listening in the Planning and Land Use Committee to developers and also constituents with their issues as well. I firmly believe that attracting and developing new business in San Pedro will solve most of the problems raised here today. I look forward to continuing to work for the neighborhood and continue to promote our little corner of the world, which I do. I talk to like 50 people a day about this place, and people are paying attention, which is really sort of amazing. Talked to a guy from Santa Monica today. It's like, I can't wait to get down there and see you guys and see what's going on. So I appreciate your vote.
All right, our final candidate, John Demeglio.
Hi, I'm a 3rd-generation San Pedro. 20-something years in tugboats, 15, 16 years longshoreman. I own my own business since I was 23 years old, 24 years old, built it from the ground up. But it's not about me. I represent the people of San Pedro, the people that I know, the people that I understand, the people that work hard for this town, work very hard for the town and deserve respect. This board hasn't respected the people. They haven't informed the people of what was going on. It was always a fight, and I was right at the top of the fight, and I always will be for the people in the area. It's about the people in the area. It's about notifying them on things, and this board hasn't done it, and that's why I was elected to begin with. Thank you. And also a shout out to Neil. He's spot on. Thank you, Neil.
All right, I want to thank all of the candidates for their time tonight and their visions for their candidacy. Before I turn it over to Diana, I do believe there is one more slide that will be put up later. So if you do want to view the slide and you're one of the attendees, please pin Jason Herring's screen and open it in, I believe, speaker mode. Well, he's not going to be speaking, but try and take a look at that for the slide. So with that, I'll pass it back to Diana.
Thank you, Bron, and thank you to all the candidates who participated tonight. This concludes the candidate forum portion. If you missed something or you want to share it with your friends and neighbors, it will be posted on our website, nwsanpedro.org. And we will also post the slides from tonight's meeting. I know several people indicated they had trouble seeing the slides. So we're going to post those also on the website. They should be posted on the elections page, which is the page that we looked at earlier. As mentioned at the beginning of the meeting tonight, this election is being conducted by the city clerk's office, and all voting is by absentee ballot. And you must apply to receive the ballot. Ballot applications must be received by the city clerk's office no later than 5 p.m. on June 8th. Information about how to apply is available on our website, as we looked at earlier. The ballots can be returned in the postage paid envelope you should receive with your ballot, or they can be dropped off at Peck Park starting at 8 o'clock on Friday, June 10th, and ending at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, June 15th. All ballots that are mailed must be postmarked by 5 p.m. June 15th. If you encounter a problem, you should contact the city clerk's office, and the name Robert Salgado is our contact. Their number is 213-978-0444. That information is also available on our website under the FAQs. In the event you've submitted an application and do not receive a ballot, or received an incorrect ballot, or you need a duplicate ballot, then you would contact the city clerk's office. So thank you for caring about your community and attending this forum. If you'd like to get more involved with the neighborhood council, or might consider volunteering for a committee, or might be interested in the Vista del Oro seat, please enter your contact information in the Q&A. There's one more item on our agenda because this is a public meeting. We do have an opportunity for public comment. Public comment will be limited to 1 minute per person. Candidates will not be able to answer any questions during this time. And as required by the Brown Act, we will not be able to respond to any public comment except to answer technical questions about the election. So if you wish to make a public comment at this time, you can use the raised hand function. If you're on the phone, and I saw at least we had one person that was, then you can enter *9. So I will check and see if there's anyone raising their hand. Actually, Jason, I can't see that.
I don't see any raised hands at this time.
Okay, then we will conclude the public comment section. I want to thank Jason for his assistance tonight. And in closing, I want to wish the best of luck to all the candidates. Remember that we're going to be posting the video of this session on nwsanpedro.org. So with that, oh, Dan, are you raising your hand? Are you raising your hand, Dan? No, okay. So with that, I wish everyone a good evening.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. You take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. All right, and I'm going to stop recording at this point.
Yes.